The tragedy of Medusa, the birth of a legend. In the misty mountains of ancient Greece, the wrath of the gods and the fates of mortals were deeply intertwined. It was during this time that a woman named Medusa lived. Medusa was so beautiful that those who saw her couldn't look away. Her hair shimmered like gold, and her gaze was as captivating as the pearls hidden in the depths of the sea. Yet, her beauty would also become the beginning of her misfortune. Medusa was a priestess in the temple of Athena. She lived a life devoted to the goddess, guarding the sanctity of the temple. But one day, Poseidon, the god of the sea, became enchanted by Medusa's beauty. He entered Athena's temple and sought to claim Medusa for himself. Terrified by Poseidon's advances, Medusa sought refuge in Athena. Unfortunately, instead of protecting her, the goddess grew furious. Poseidon had violated Medusa within her own temple, and this act had dishonored Athena. Athena's wrath was terrifying. She decided to punish Medusa. She transformed Medusa's beautiful hair into a nest of venomous snakes. Now, Medusa's gaze was deadly. Anyone who looked at her would turn to stone. Medusa had been turned into a monster, and she could no longer live among humans. She was condemned to a life of solitude in a dark cave, far from the world she once knew. Medusa's loneliness and inner turmoil. As Medusa lived alone in her cave, she couldn't help but reflect on her past. Once a woman admired by all, she had now become a creature feared by everyone. Her serpentine hair hissed endlessly, and her eyes were surrounded by the stone statues of those she had turned to stone. Each day, she grew more afraid of seeing her own reflection, for she no longer recognized herself. Medusa's loneliness plunged her deeper into despair. She had fallen victim to the wrath of the gods, and there was no escape from her curse. Yet, deep within her, a spark of humanity still flickered. Medusa questioned her fate, rebelling against the injustice of the gods. Why me? She asked herself. What did I do to deserve this punishment? Perseus's quest and Medusa's end. As time passed, Medusa's name became a legend. Her story reached the ears of heroes, and eventually, a man named Perseus set out to slay her. With the help of Athena and Hermes, Perseus found Medusa, and, without looking directly at her, used a reflection to guide his strike and behead her. Even in death, Medusa's tragedy persisted, for she had always been a victim. From Medusa's severed neck sprang Pegasus, the winged horse, and Chrysaor, the giant. This was the final echo of her tragedy. Even after her death, Medusa lived on as a legend. Her story became a symbol of how beauty, power, and the wrath of the gods could intertwine to alter a mortal's fate. Medusa's legacy. Medusa's story remains one of the most captivating and dramatic tales of ancient mythology. Her tragedy illustrates how beauty and innocence can be transformed into a curse in an instant. Perhaps the most heartbreaking aspect is that Medusa never chose to become a monster. Medusa's story continues to captivate people even today. Her tragedy has inspired countless works of art, literature, and film. Medusa deserves to be remembered not as a monster, but as a victim, for she was an innocent woman who fell victim to the wrath of the gods. Final words. Medusa's story reminds us of the harsh realities of the ancient world. It shows how the anger of the gods could alter the fate of mortals. Medusa lives on as a legend, but her story is, at its core, a human tragedy. When telling her story, it's important to feel her pain and loneliness. For Medusa was not a monster, she was a victim.